Let me give you first a quick review of what we have looked at in the past. So here is a printout from an Ethereum transaction where in one of the first lines you see something called the TX hash. This is the hash of the transaction information. There's also an address. This is the from address. And then there is something called the gas limit and the gas used by a transaction. Now, in class last time, I explained that the Ethereum network essentially is a virtual machine. As part of a virtual machine, what you do is whenever you do any processing of information, you expense computing cycles. And in the Ethereum network, what happens is that you have to pay for the computing cycles. Now, let me briefly explain how this gas comes in. Gas is essentially what you have to is the fuel, if you want, that you have to expense for these computing cycles. And when you do a transaction, you have to therefore pay for this gas. Now there is a gas limit is listed here. The gas limit essentially is the maximum of gas that you indicated when you submitted the transaction you're willing to expense. And the gas used by this transaction is exactly 21,000. Now, this is the standard size for any transaction on the Ethereum network. That's basically you pay for those 21,000 gas that you use. You see below the gas, there is something called the gas price. This is essentially what you have to expense for it. And you see that there is a transaction fee, which is implied by the amount of ether that you pay for the gas. In this particular case, everything is standardized because your wallet provides standardized information. All right. Then the next part shows you a Bitcoin transaction. Now, Bitcoin is very similar. What you have here is, again, you have an address that sends money or Bitcoin from one address to another address. One address to another address. Now, quickly have a look at an Ethereum block. Here there is a hash for the entire block. There's also something called the parent hash, which links to the past block. If you look at the block from the Bitcoin blockchain, here you have, again, the hash of the block, which includes the nonce. You can see that it starts with the number of leading 0. And here on the bottom left corner, you see the nonce, which is the information that is included in order to generate a situation where when you take the hash of all the transactions in the block and you add the nonce to it, that you get this new hash, which has the leading 0 that are in the top right corner.